Hi everyone, it's Misha Garrick.
We're live now, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Yay! Hello, everyone. I'm Sky. And it says that below, even though it's not supposed to. It's supposed to say something different. It's just being annoying.
I'll again share your links after the chat, and I'll link to your actual channel again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Since it's being mean.
Yeah, it's just being. Oh, there it goes.
Well, I changed that, but it's still connected to the. I was able to change the toolbar. By the way, for those who use the toolbox, it's back. Misha's having trouble with that. That's her issues today. It's back for me, apparently. It's been gone. This is the first time I've been able to use it because I check every time I do a live stream on Sunday. And this is the first time it's worked. So even last Sunday, less than what? Today's Friday? Less than a week ago, it still wasn't working on my end.
Maybe they're doing like a gradual rollout, hopefully.
Maybe it's their way of making up to me the fact that they can't put my correct channel on here.
Maybe.
Because I have 2 channels, and it keeps connecting me to the one I don't use.
Yeah.
It's mean.
It's beautiful. Technology is just perfect until you can't actually use it the way you're supposed to.
I think what I'm gonna have to do is delete that other channel.
Yeah. No, it might actually end up being the thing that works for you, but then on the other hand, it might be a bit sad for you because your old videos will just disappear.
Yeah. Sad day all around. Sad day all around.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Someday.
Yeah. One day. So how was your day today?
My day it's been very wet. It's raining here. And rainy days are sleepy days for me. And I would love to go back to sleep. Sleep sounds delicious. I'm not going back to sleep. I'm now officially awake for the rest of the day.
Yeah,
How about you?
Lovely.
Your day's almost at the end because you're 7 hours ahead of me.
Yeah, the sun is starting to set and finally cooling down, which is quite lovely. And,
that's always good.
Yeah, it's very nice. But the lighting, as usual, is quite terrible because every time I think I'm going to settle in the place that the lighting is nice, then I discover that there's a whole new noise in there. So that's rather sad.
My husband's in the other room playing video games. I don't know if you guys can hear him or not, but he's just complaining about resource points being low or something. I don't know. Randomness.
Yeah, I think mine is my family watching some kind of documentary or something from what I heard. So totally random.
Oh. So what are you working on today?
I am probably just going to keep writing my Western for a bit longer because I just need to get that little bit of distance from the actual critiques and stuff that I got. Although I do have a suspicion I might have figured out what I'm going to do with that. I think I'm just going to implement like 90% of everything else that's been put in there, and then I'm going to probably go to something like Scribophile or something like that to see what the feedback is, or maybe get some of my Wattpad readers to read it or something to see, because I just think, I don't know if you also find that, but with critiques, I love critiques. I think it's probably the most cost-effective way to properly edit structurally edit a novel. So critique partners are awesome, but I do find like if you have a draft form, some people, it does affect the reading experience. So, for example, if you did something that wasn't quite perfect, or it's never perfect, but quite good in the beginning of a book, for example, and then they will comment on it, but that impression that you aren't completely trustworthy as a writer kind of gets carried through all the way, and then they kind of will nail you on anything, which isn't necessarily like it's a conspiracy theory or I'm trying to say, my writing is always perfect, but it's just I do think that might have an impact on something like that. So and also, for example, with this critique partner of mine who had the negative feedback, he did break up my book into like four parts, and then which were all kind of basically novel length. So I can't blame him for that. But if you take like a month to comment on one part and a month to comment on the next part, and you can't comment on the next part, then it might be possible that you just didn't see the lines of the plot line going through the entire story, because there's a lot of stuff going on, but there is a main plot, but it is kind of buried underneath everything, almost like a foundation to keep everything together. So I think if you take so long to read that book, it might feel like the book is not quite as tied together as it should be, but actually it is. It's just that, in a sense, it's maybe a bit subtle. So that's what I'm basically wanting to do, is now to create another revision round where I'm going to send it out for feedback and see if people actually do react in the same way once all the other niggles that other people pointed out have been removed.
Okay.
And then if they continue to say, listen, where's the plot? Then I'm going to have to realize, okay, so the only thing that I don't like about this thing is that it's, it might take me a few months to do this, and then if it does mean that I have to go back to the storyboard, I actually I revised for nothing, which sucks. So
you mentioned using Wattpad. Do you use Wattpad to get excuse me, sorry, like first impressions or something like that, or is that something you've used in the past and you're not using now?
No. Basically, what happened was, it's actually a long story. I was signed with a publishing house for the first 2 books. It was actually even a bit further back than that. I actually sold the first book I ever finished. Not the first one I ever wrote, just the first one I ever completed. And I sold it to an independent publisher on the condition that because it's young adult, I would have to split it in 2 so that the book would come in at under 60,000 words each.
Okay.
So at that stage, my book was 102,000 words, but there was a natural break in the pacing. So I kind of realized it would be possible. So I just signed, because it's a 2-book deal for where most of it is already written. And then I did that, and I broke it into 2, and it got published. And then it did, the way most books do, which is to say pathetically. But it has to do also, it's a small publisher, and I had no real, access to my audience. So then things went sideways when said publisher, who will remain unnamed, went and tried to create a shadow. They said it's another publisher that they want to license to, and I refused because I didn't want to move away from my editor. But then the problem was that the more it continued, the more I realized that actually this wasn't a different publishing house. It was actually just a shadow organization or a shadow daughter subsidiary company of this main publishing house. And what they were doing was actually basically pirating my book.
Oh,
they
that's
wanted
lovely.
to. And I picked it up. Luckily, I picked it up fast enough, and I started asking like a million questions, and they got really bitchy about it. And then I went and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to do that thing most murder suspects do, and I'm going to lawyer up. So I found myself a lawyer, and I explained the situation, and he said, no, just tell them you spoke to your lawyer, and your lawyer says this and this and this and this, and you demand your rights back. And that was very cool of him, because I'm in South Africa. So, the rand dollar exchange is like, I think it's 1 rand at the moment to over 14 rand for $1. So for me to pay for a proper lawyer would be like probably So I always compare it to college tuition, half a year's college tuition. So so I was really grateful, and the guy said no. He is actually legit, because I did follow up and see who referenced him to where and whatever. But then he said no, you'll just give me this advice in return. He'll one day come to South Africa, him and his wife, and then I'll go stick them for drinks one day. But then he gave me this advice, and I went and I went to the publisher and I said, listen, my lawyer says this. And then they gave me my rights back. But they were, and then what they did, and it's actually, one day I will get them for it, but they went and they basically, I insisted on getting a rights reversion letter, because, they can say, yeah, sure, publish where you want. But the moment my book does well, they are exactly the kind of company who would actually turn around and sue me for taking their rights that was technically licensed to them, because they never reverted to me. So I went and I insisted on a rights reversion letter, and then in that letter they basically say that it's my fault that I withdrew, that they gave me my rights back because I'm unprofessional and I don't have a concept of how the market works. Because apparently I'm just supposed to accept that publishers are pirating my book so that they don't have to pay me my fucking royalties. So so needless to say, I was a bit pissed. But then but basically what that did was, even if I want to shop that book out again, I will never get someone, because they will always think I'm this difficult person, regardless of the fact that I'm actually deeply professional. I'm just not willing to accept crap from people. And so anyway, so that happened, and then I decided, you know what, screw this entirely. And there was actually, and then more or less at the same time, there was this article by an agent who was never my agent, but who I always respected. And it was about this whole thing with how it's wonderful, because if people self-publish, then they call them, then only the fat cat will remain that he can use in order to sell to publishers, because they've already proven themselves. Yeah, literally in that kind of wording. And I'm like, well, damn, it would be nice if the industry actually respected its writers, because this is one of the biggest agents out there. And I'm just like, you know what, stuff all of this, I'm self-publishing. And I just, and so I went self-publishing, and then I immediately had to realize, okay, so I have to find my audience now, because when I made the announcement on my blog, listen, I'm going my own way, I had to make damn sure I'm at least outselling my publisher, or my former publisher. And then, so what I used Wattpad for was, I happened to come across, while I was doing my research to figure out how the hell I'm going to do that, I came across an article about Wattpad and how they're fangirling, and then I just read, and it's like there's 18 million teenage girls on Wattpad reading books. And I'm like, light bulb.
Light bulb.
Yeah, light bulb. And so basically what I did was I took my book, the first book in the series, and I posted it on Wattpad in little 1,000-word segments. And then at the end of it, it got featured on Wattpad, and then I got I'm currently at something like over 280,000 reads. So I published the next one as well that way, and that's got 86,000 reads. So basically, it counts for every chapter that's out there. So it's still dividing 280,000 reads by, I think, 60 chapters, or 60 kind of 1,000 sections. It still comes down to well over math, at least 40,000 people who read the book. Yeah. So I kind of, or at least, no, wait, was it 4,000? 40,000. 4,000 people. I'm bad.
Don't ask me to do math in my head. It ain't gonna happen.
I'm very good at math, but I'm pathetic at division. I'm more a calculus girl. But so but my point was always that if only a percentage of people who actually read these books for free buy the third book, I'm actually making a reasonably stable income. Yeah. So and then basically what happened was that So that's what I'm using Wattpad for. Is literally it was just exposure, because that's the young adult reading audience is literally there and they want to read books. So I don't have to beg them to read it. I don't have to, and that's actually, and that's basically what I use Wattpad for. So I've never actually gone and published anything that I haven't completed editing on or anything like that on there.
Sorry, he's leaving.
Okay.
He
But
has to go do doctor stuff.
oh, okay.
Have fun. He's like, yay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah, so that's basically what that thing was just for exposure. But I do realize that some people do use it for feedback, which is kind of why I am considering it, but I would never put the book on there for completely free permanently, because that was never the intention. Or the intention had been to trial run, that's why the second book is on there, to trial run whether that would be sustainable, for example, by doing a patronage system where the books would go on for free, but they would support me like month by month or whatever, if they wanted to, with like $1 or whatever at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't really seem to be working. But I haven't quite given up on the patronage idea. I'm just changing the way I'm going to do it, but it does involve me not making that book free.
Yeah.
So if I do that, I would probably pick like 10 readers on Wattpad, like the big super fans, and then I would put it on a private line that only they could actually
access.
Yeah. But I haven't decided about it yet. But it's probably going to be something like that.
Yeah. I've never used Wattpad. I have an account because I was going to use it. I do know someone, but he writes in a very, very, very small niche market. And because he writes, they're light novels. They're basically Americanized Japanese novels, sort of. I don't remember what exactly he calls them. And his audience is on Wattpad. Like that is his audience. So he puts first drafts on Wattpad, uses the feedback he gets to make his edits, and then he takes it off Wattpad and publishes them. And it works for him. But because he is in that kind of niche market where his audience is already on Wattpad, I think that's the reason it works for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of hoping more for, like, because, okay, don't get me wrong, the Wattpad audience is awesome. And I do enjoy, one of my favorite things about being on Wattpad is the fact that they interact with the book to the extent that they do. They ask me questions and they like shipping people, and they're, some come back for second or third reads, and I can tell because they're constantly commenting. So stuff like that, it's actually, for me, that's something that I didn't really foresee when I posted on Wattpad, but that I actually came to love, because it does actually create a really nice environment, really, almost a whole new little sub-community. So I do like that, and I really wish I can figure out a way to do it, but Wattpad seems quite determined not to ever freaking monetize anything on their website. So, or at least not do it in a way that makes it able for me to monetize on the website, which is really frustrating. But because if I could have done that, I would have. But yeah.
Might be something worth trying in the future. Just not something I'm doing right now.
Yeah, it depends. Like, for example, I also have another one of my books, because the idea was to do the first book in each series I write, to put that on Wattpad, so that if people want to read the next books, then as a way to counter the whole idea of having to go exclusive with Amazon in order to put something up as free. I kind of went that direction, because then if you want the free version of the book, you can read it on Wattpad, but I'm still able to publish everywhere else, and I don't have to make it free at all.
Okay.
So, because the thing about it is that I don't have a problem with making it free on Amazon, but I have a problem with the exclusivity of it. Because usually, like, if my books are selling like if they're new and stuff, at least a quarter of my income comes from other places.
Mhm.
So it doesn't make sense to just like jump onto that bandwagon, and I have no intention of doing like Prime and stuff like that. So. But anyway, back to my original train of thought. So the point was that the other book is an adult fantasy, the urban fantasy novel I mentioned, I wrote the other day. But that one, it doesn't do as well because it's an adult, so there's a smaller market amount of people who actually, I guess, maybe find it and who want to read it in the end. So it doesn't work as well for all genres and all age groups, but it worked really well for what I was writing with War of 6 Crowns. Yeah.
Cool.
Tell me if I'm talking way too much.
I don't think so, but do you want to do some writing now, maybe?
We can do that, yes. Let me just open my document. But
Okay.
what are you going to be working on?
I'm going to be working on the same thing I've been working on. I haven't quite finished my outline, which is what I was working on the other day.
Oh, yeah?
Let's see. I had it plotted out, so I have like 18 to 19 chapters, and I'm missing like 5 chapters worth of stuff.
Oh,
But I've been writing anyways. I think I wrote over 3,000 words yesterday total, because I continued writing after the sprint you and I did. And because of that, some things have changed in my plot line that'll add some extra chapters, which I'm okay with.
That's really cool.
And I write urban fantasy, vampires and stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned that the last time as well, or not last time, a few times back. But so what is your story about? Or don't you want to?
My mom asked me that the other day because she asked me about everything I'm working on, and she was like, "That's a lot of stuff happening in your story." And I was like, "Yeah, it is, but it's not at the same time." My main character can see ghosts, and she's also a vampire hunter. That's the short story of it, or a monster hunter, I should say. She's a monster hunter because it's not just vampires she goes after. She goes after all of the supernatural creatures that are destroying humanity. So that's the short of it. The long of it is where it gets complicated. And why she was like, "That's a lot of stuff going on in that story." I'm like, sort of. She's gonna save the world from monsters. Let's just go with that.
Yeah, it's the easy version. Okay, so my document is now open. So I'm going to do the same thing I do every night. I'm going to count down from 3, and then I'm going to mute myself, and I hope you mute yourself as well.
Yep.
And then I'll call you when the time is over.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, excellent. Good luck. See you on the other side.
Yep.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. And time.
Woohoo!
We're doing quite well with our 20-minute sprints, I think.
I think so. I'm getting a lot of writing done.
I'm glad.
I wrote 798 words.
Nice. I'm still on my snail's pace of 385 words. No.
That's still really good.
Yeah, at the moment, the thing is that I stopped writing it like 10 months ago or something, so it's still, getting into that flow and finding what I wanted to write back then and putting it in context with what I'd written before is a bit difficult sometimes, so I have to keep checking stuff all the time. But hopefully it gets better as I get deeper into the story itself.
Okay.
Hmm.
I think it helps because even though that I'm working on a different story, it is the sequel, so I'm still working with the same characters.
Yeah.
And only 6 months has passed between the end of book 1 and the start of this book.
Yeah.
And I've already gotten past a overview of what's happened during those 6 months, so that makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, that does make sense.
My feet. Ugh. Ugh. And I also find writing during sprints with someone else helps a lot too, because I definitely write more words when I'm sprinting with someone else than I do when I'm sprinting alone, because I did some sprints last night as well.
Yeah.
And I think my word count was somewhere in the lower 200, 300 range.
Yeah. That can be. I also find that usually I find that the longer I sprint, the slower I become. But yeah, I'm hoping that maybe tonight I'll also get some more sprinting done, because I do actually want to get more writing done than just the 20 minutes a day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all trying to still figure out my schedule and stuff like that. It's still a bit complicated. I'm working on it.
Well, I usually I write all over the place as far as time-wise goes. This works really well for me because even on days when I do have work, I've been off all week this week.
Yeah.
But even on days I do have work, this would be perfect for me because, let's see, it's not 1 o'clock yet. 1 o'clock is about what time I usually start getting ready for work to go to work.
Yeah.
So I could still join these sprints if you continue doing them at this time.
Yeah.
Before I go to work, and I'll get some writing done before I go to work.
That's nice.
So.
Yeah. So tell me about the whole full-time writing. What made you decide to go do that?
My husband is switching jobs. That's actually what he's going to do this doctor stuff for. He's going through all the preliminary stuff. He's going to becoming he's going to be working as I don't know the official title, but basically it's prison guard security. And he'll be working 12-hour days with overtime. And our kids are still at school, and the shifts that he'll be doing coincide with when the girls need to get off the bus or on the bus. And there would be no one here to get them on or off the bus and watch them.
Yeah.
So I'm basically going to become a stay-at-home mom because he'll be making enough that if I want to, I can get a part-time job, but I don't have to. And I can just go to writing full-time, which was our plan in like 5 years anyways.
Oh, that's cool.
It just means that we're speeding up the timeline a little bit. Might mean eating rice and beans for a little bit, but it's okay.
To start.
So,
yeah,
it's more of a just the luck of how everything's turning out kind of thing than anything else.
Yeah, no, that is very nice. I hope it works out well for you guys.
I hope so too.
Very
excited.
Yeah.
We're both excited actually because he's excited about starting this new job because it'll get him out of a job that he likes the job, but the boss has switched multiple times, and his current boss is
Yeah.
Not a bad person, but really likes to impress his higher ups by making his people do more than what they need to do.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
Yeah. Not cool.
So he'll be able to get away from a job he's no longer liking. I'll be able to get away from a job I'm no longer liking, and I'll be able to go to something I really do like.
Yeah, that's cool. What are you doing? I can't remember if you mentioned it last night. What do you?
I work for Dell. Now it's Dell. I work for a manufacturing plant that makes cloud servers.
Okay.
And Dell bought out the company that I worked for originally. It's one of the only manufacturing plants that they have that does what we're doing now, which is part of the reason they bought it. So while we're under the Dell name, we don't work by the same rules as all the other Dell companies because we're two different things. They make computers and we make servers. And while they have similar attributes, they're not the same. So the rules are different.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And again, I don't hate my job. I actually like my job, but the hours the job I particularly do no longer exists on third shift, which is what I was on and what worked well for me, my husband, the kids, and all of the schedules we have. And since it no longer exists on third, they had to put me on second.
Oh yeah.
And that shift just sucks.
Yeah, those hours you mentioned are horrible.
They are. And the hours I mentioned are with overtime. Usually I get off at like 11:30 at night.
Okay.
But
even
overtime is really nice, especially if you're looking at leaving anyway.
Yeah.
So. For now. But that's what I do.
I was wondering because it did sound like a rather, for me, it sounds like rather strange hours because, but I realized it's shift work. So I was wondering if we were like in medicine, kind of something in that kind of direction. But
manufacturing plant.
Yeah.
Manufacturing plants are just weird here. Because every plant I've talked to, that's basically been the hours for second shift has been 3 to 11 or 11:30, depending on whether you have a paid lunch or not.
Yeah.
So, it's work. It pays.
That's what matters sometimes.
Sometimes you don't have to like your job to do it.
Yeah, that's true. Although I find
and I don't hate my job.
Yeah, for the long term, it's usually better to like the job, though. That's kind of.
It is.
Yeah.
It definitely makes things easier.
Yeah, I've always had this thing that I don't want to come to like 20 years later and wondering if I spent my entire life on that, So for me, not liking a job is a big problem.
Let's see. I haven't worked a job more than this will actually been the longest job I've ever worked, even though I've worked at the same building, but I started off as a temp employee. Okay. And I was a temp employee for 5 years, 4.5 years. So I've been with this company. In March, I'll have been with this company for 6 years. 6? Yeah, 6. Wow, that's hard to believe. But I haven't always worked under this company because I started as a temp worker and then was hired on, and then Dell bought this company.
Yeah.
So I've technically worked for 3 different companies within the span of 6 years, but doing the same exact job.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's still the longest I've ever spent at any one job.
Yeah.
And it just feels it's time for a change.
Yeah, that makes sense. These days, it's actually, I read somewhere that they say it's actually the norm for people to change more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite interesting time.
I know some people that look for a new job at least they'll stay with a job for a year and then switch jobs.
Yeah.
And I used to wonder why, and the more time that passes that I'm at this particular job, the more I understand it.
Yeah, I think also it has to do a lot like with getting raises and things like that, because maybe the job won't give you a raise, so you just like get a better wage like somewhere else, starting salary somewhere else or
Yep.
something like that. Yeah.
Makes sense.
But yeah, for me, I think I found that the biggest thing about being a full-time writer is that somehow you never have enough time to actually write. I don't know how that works. I used to write. I used to have more time than this to write, and I still never managed to write. I don't know. It's really weird, but it's about the marketing and stuff, I think, that you have to do.
The way I think I've heard people mention it is that when you work another job and you have writing as basically a side job, you have to force yourself to find the free time to make time for writing. Whereas if writing is your only job, you tend to put it off doing other things because you're like, oh, I have all the time in the world to get this done.
Yeah.
And then that time goes away and you're like, where'd it go? Time, come back.
Yeah. I don't understand. I'm supposed to have 24 hours.
Where'd my 24 hours go, man?
Yeah. No, I someone the other day asked me, so what would you do if we added 2 hours to the day? I'm like, well, I want to say I would write more, but I'd just probably fill it with more crap. But that's actually part of the reason why I started doing the 20 minutes, because I actually want to write probably more towards the early morning when I actually wake up. And I want to give myself an hour to do like nothing, and then like an hour of writing before breakfast. But and then get into my work day and stuff. But if, for example, something happens and I can't get that hour of writing in, or maybe another hour over lunchtime, then at least I will have had the 20 minutes that I'm doing here every night. So that's kind of why I'm doing this as well. And I find with the YouTube, doing it on YouTube like this, it actually does give me a kind of more of an accountability, because I don't really want to skip a day. So it's not like I'm forcing myself to do it, but it does actually give myself reason to do this instead of, for example, turning on the TV or something.
Yeah. That was one of the reasons I wanted to start doing my Sunday live streams, because I do a live stream on Sunday mornings, which I think it's at 10 a.m. for me, so I'm thinking that's about 5 p.m. for you.
Yeah.
Okay. And it started off as a way to do, I had a couple of people that we were all talking in a chat on Facebook about the fact that we wanted to start holding ourselves accountable for goals and stuff. And I was like, well, I know a couple other people who do goals live chats, and they hold each other accountable that way, because they have to go back and let all of the world know that they failed or succeeded.
Yeah.
And I was like, we could do that. And that's how my live stream started. But now we do the goals. We do my monthly goals every couple of months. So we just did our ones for January, February last weekend.
Okay.
And then in between those, we usually do write-ins. I know this week we're going to be talking about planners and bullet journals, since it's the beginning of the year and everyone's doing that kind of stuff. But then we'll be back to doing write-ins, and we do a bunch of 20-minute sprints, like I think 3 or 4 20-minute sprints during our write-ins.
Okay.
So, and that's how we've been doing things. And I've definitely found that having the world basically hold us accountable helps get stuff done.
Yeah. At the moment, this is still mostly like, but as I was talking about Wattpad today, I actually thought I probably should just advertise on Wattpad. There's a lot of people who read my books actually write themselves, so maybe they would want to join.
Well, you could also do, you were talking about the fact of Amazon exclusivity, so whatever, however that's pronounced. And you could always do, Amazon allows you, if you are exclusive on Amazon, you can still post up to 10% of your book elsewhere. You could post that up to 10% on Wattpad, and then put a disclaimer at the end or even at the beginning, so people don't get frustrated and like, I'm not looking at that ever again because it wasn't the whole thing.
Yeah.
You can post that it's just a sample, and if they wanted to read the rest of it, they can go to Amazon and purchase it.
Yeah. That's what I'm planning to do with the third one.
Okay.
But the thing is I don't like. Yeah, for me, I don't like the idea of Amazon exclusivity. That's actually what it comes down to, because I actually think there are other places, like the one thing that I want to trial run with book 3, when one day, before hopefully I die of old age, I'd publish it, that I want to try out. But for example, I think Apple and places like that are actually also growing quite quickly, but they're not going to grow if we keep doing this thing of basically turning Amazon into a monopoly.
Yeah.
So it is kind of, for me, and not necessarily the best of ideas to do exclusivity. And I don't, for me, I understand why people do it, because I know there's like a way that you do the free gifting and stuff in order to generate a funnel and things, but it doesn't really fit with my long-term strategy that I decided on when I started publishing.
Yeah.
So, because for me, what I want to do is gradually build up my readership, like over 5 years, and building from that core, rather than trying to, because I don't want to create also a situation, and I'm very glad that I decided on that, because, the whole book funnel thing basically depends on being able to write like a book every 3 months, and I can't do that because, or I can do that, but I cannot deliver and publish at a quality that I would be satisfied with publishing. And I refuse to actually put something up that if I bought that and paid money for it, that I wouldn't want to stone the author afterwards. So, so for me, that's kind of why. So I don't want to build my strategy around like this whole let's milk Amazon for whatever it's worth kind of thing, because for that to work, you kind of have to make certain sacrifices, and those are sacrifices I'm not willing to make. I would rather sacrifice my immediate profits in order to generate a long-term reputation that is sustainable for the next 40 years or for however long I happen to be alive and writing books. And I'm glad I decided on that, because this book that I've been working on I started working on it in 2015. So, and I haven't been able to get it to the point where I'm happy with it. So I'm not going to push it down people's throats and expect them to somehow be happy about it. But yeah, so that's kind of why I don't want to do the Amazon exclusive thing, because I think you're kind of, for me, for what I'm basically planning to do with my books, it would actually just shoot me in the foot in the long run.
Yeah. And see, I'm sort of along there with you. I would like to do so the way I'm planning, at least with this trilogy that I'm working on, I am planning to release them. I'm planning on doing rapid release. I'll have them all ready to go before I even publish book 1. And I plan to publish all 3 within a couple weeks of each other. Yeah. So they'll all be released within a month's time. And my plan is to go exclusive with Amazon for the first 3 months. And then after that, as they all leave, I think it's called Amazon Select, I think it is.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called. And as each one of as the 3-month span ends for each one, then go wide with them.
Yeah.
And that's my plan, at least from the beginning. The paperbacks are going to be everywhere automatically because I'm publishing with Ingram Spark as well as KDP. But at least for the ebooks, I'm going to go exclusive for the first 3 months, and then I'll put them wide.
Yeah. I'm also thinking about, because at the moment I'm just on KDP.
Okay.
So I have been thinking about doing Ingram Spark as well, but I've held off because I actually want to update all my covers and I commissioned a map like 3 years ago for the third book. In the third book, it's the first book is structured in such a way that it was a smaller story that focused more on the personal thing, so it didn't matter where everything was. But the third book, by definition, just became like really more epic fantasy kind of, if I can put it that way. So it was a lot more you kind of need to understand how the countries relate to each other, because I'm not just doing, you know, like Chronicles of Narnia, where it's basically Narnia and everything else is basically surrounding that. I have 5 main characters, but they're basically divided into 2 groups, and there's basically and the one group basically consists of a country, but that has 3 kings, and there's basically actually 3 countries, but that form one country. So you kind of have to see the map to understand why the problems they're having is the problem that they're having to deal with. But so I did the map, and then I just decided that I want to put them into the first 2 books as well, and just, you know, do a light breezy quick new proofread through it, because there's always something that you miss, and stuff like that. And then once that is ready, then I can put it on Ingram. But I didn't want to pay the money of putting it on Ingram, and then it's not really the book that I want to put up there. So that was basically what's been holding me back. But yeah.
Publishing is hard.
It is.
Everyone says writing is hard, and writing to me is really easy. At least writing the first draft, that's my favorite thing. And editing is not so hard, is not so bad either. Yeah. Everyone I know seems to hate editing.
I love editing. Editing is actually my favorite thing.
I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I am worried about the publishing portion, though, because I have been published in the past, but I was published with a small publisher that later closed. In fact, actually, I have the first 2 novels of that series were published with the small publisher before they closed. And then I wrote the last 3 after they were closed. Yeah. I'm working with a professional editor with all 5 now to get them ready to go. So I can just basically do rapid release again with them and just do all 5 at once. Yeah. But publishing is just the part that I'm like, oh my God, can I do this?
Yeah, it's really I find that as well. The other day with when I got this bad feedback, and the whole time I'm like, you know, did I waste all my time? And then I'm like, you know what, I wish I had a publisher so that I could actually just freaking have someone tell me, Misha, it's okay, calm down. You know, just having that, or just, you know, when you're editing and just having an editor saying, Misha, just stop it, you're done. You know, that kind of, I miss that sometimes of being with a publisher.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just, and stuff like, you know, for me, the choices you have to make, you know, like, do you hire an editor? At what stage do you hire an editor? At what stage are you going to hire this person or that person, or this, that, and the other? Or, you know, like, I'm usually someone who actually prefers to do everything myself because I'm deeply perfectionistic, and I have worked with like getting a cover designer, and then I get the cover for my book and it's not what I fucking want. No, so, and then I get angry because I explained what I wanted, you know, and then it's like, come on, man, you know. So, but at the moment, the problem is, especially now with this other job, I don't have more than 3 hours maybe a day that I can actually spend on writing stuff or writing and publishing stuff. So I can't really spend hours and hours on stuff like covers. So I actually have to get someone who can make me a cover. And then I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to do that because I don't know if I'm actually going to like what comes out, and I still have to pay them for it. And it's like, yeah, so stuff like that, you know, in a sense, that part where the publisher's like, you don't like it too bloody bad. Oh, you know. It's like that part I kind of also miss in a strange way, but like, yeah.
I've been really lucky with my covers. Like, I wasn't completely in love with the ones that came from my publisher, but they fit the book, they fit the brand, and they worked because they did sell. The ones I have seen, the back before I wrote the next 3 and had to reorder some of the books because I'm a horrible person. The two that I had commissioned already, based on the two that had originally been published, the new covers were fantastic, also on brand, and I like them so much better. And with every other book cover I've gotten since then, it's been right on par. Because I'm a cover addict, I am a very big fan of pre-made covers. I always find good pre-made covers that are perfect for what I'm planning on writing anyways, and I'm just like, oh, that will match this idea. Let me buy it. So I have 26 covers.
Well done.
And maybe 5 of the first drafts of all of those covers have been done. Maybe. In my defense, when I get one cover, so like this series is actually a perfect example. I knew I was going to write 3 books. The first book was a pre-made, and then I had 2 custom covers done for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
And I've done that with a lot of the covers I have, actually. I'll find the first one, I'll find a pre-made that matches the first one, and just get custom covers for the next 2. And I'm like, there we go. And I complete the series, and I've got the covers for the whole series.
Yeah.
So in my defense, that's what I've done a lot of time. But I've got 26 covers and maybe 5 drafts written.
I think I have actually 26 drafts written and 5 covers.
We're the opposite. Woo!
Woohoo! Yin and yang.
Oh, God. It works. But my husband has definitely put me on a cover ban. I am not allowed to buy any more covers until I've got at least 10 books published.
Yeah. That's a good idea, maybe.
Maybe just a little. It is one of the factors in my goals this year, because my goal was to publish 12 books, and that is the main reason why.
I actually also also, like you, I also know how many books are in my series. I just don't have names and stuff for them. So I have, like, at the moment 3. This series, The War of 6 Crowns, is supposed to be 6 books, of which 2 are published. But now there's like this kind of other thing that has been knocking around in my brain, which is kind of complicating the whole 6 books idea, which I don't know what to do with it yet, because there's this other character that's kind of spun off into her own world kind of thing, and I'm kind of contemplating to have her also have a series, but have that series tie into the main series towards the end. And I'm like, is that completely insane? I don't know. That
maybe, but it might work. You could always do a spin-off series.
Yeah, that's true.
You could do a spin-off series with a bunch of side characters. Like, say you only have the idea for that one character for that book. Like, there's not any more books dealing with that character. But there's other characters who also do, like, write me. You could do, your spin-off series could be a bunch of 1 books featuring different characters.
That's true. That could work. Because with with like my with this specific, the world that I built for this series, is there's actually so many stories that I can think of things that could actually make awesome stories on their own. So I think one day, again, like when I finish the series before I die of old age, I could actually, in theory, start writing prequels and stuff. So the whole, like, spin-off idea isn't impossible. So, but it is something I'm thinking about. The only thing is, I don't know if I should do it, because I should maybe consider just concentrating on my series and get that done first. Because otherwise, I don't know how I'm going to ever. Because I'm legit worried that I'm going to actually end up writing, like, more books that are as big as this one, and then it takes freaking forever to get those edited. You know, it's not. That's something I didn't really foresee. You know, the longer the book is, the more work actually goes into every single editing round, and I'm quite deep into editing. So, you know, for me, 6, 7, 8, 9 drafts of a book is actually quite normal for me. And that takes a long time, and I don't know how to sidestep that. Because even if I hire an editor, I would still want to do some of it. Because I've also noticed that no editor is perfect on their own. So, yeah.
I'm going to send you a link to something that you basically reminded me of with your world, a book series, a fantasy book series I read. And I say series, it's called, the world itself is called Valdemar, but it has a bunch of different series that are usually like 3 books long in each series. And there's also a bunch of standalones as well. And they're all inside this same world. And the characters might have cameo appearances in different series. But it's basically what you were just describing with your world, is how you had so many story ideas going on at once. And that could be written to talk about the history of everything.
Cool, I'll take a look at it. Because I'm always looking for new stuff to read anyway. So I'll definitely check it out. Thanks.
Oh. So, yeah. Ugh.
Why did this disappear? For a moment, everything just went black on my screen.
It's the YouTube ghosts saying no.
The YouTube gremlins, the ones who stole my toolbox.
I know for a fact you can record on YouTube for up to 8 hours, so it's not that. It's not that we've been talking too long.
No. No, but yeah, so for me, so other than that, I've got a trilogy planned for my urban fantasy series.
Okay.
And then the Western romance is actually probably going to be 8 books. But it's a bit different because with the War of Six Crowns and my Endless series, basically both of them, they're immediate, more chronological, whereas the Western romance would basically just feature one character as the main character, and so it's not that. So it's more like a bunch of standalones rather than an actual series. Okay. But so that's just like those, and then I actually have, like I mentioned, I have like at least 3 drafts that I finished writing that I actually want to publish in the very near future. So, but the only thing that's holding me back is those are also at least 2 books. And I don't want to have too many series out that are unfinished at one time, because just having the 2 and focusing on one of them to get one book finished is already making me feel like crap. So, that's kind of, so I'm trying to, I actually have to focus myself first so that I can actually see that I can get to the point where I can actually publish all these books before I create an obligation for the next books to go out. But it's also kind of sad because there's at least 2 of those ideas that I really love, like so much. Really sad.
I'm looking through my covers to see which ones I've actually finished drafts for. I've got 2, 3 that are actually, all I would need to do is do one final edit on them and then I could release them. The problem is I was trying to release my urban fantasy ones first because I write under 2 pen names. Most of my story ideas are urban fantasy, and so that's what I want to release more often. But 2 of the 3 I have finished are contemporary sweet romances.
Oh, yeah.
And they're under another pen name.
Yeah.
But they only need like a quick edit, and then I could publish them like tomorrow if I really wanted to. They're on like draft 2 or 3 each. Yeah. So, yeah. They might end up coming out first.
Yeah.
Just so I have something out there. Yeah. And they're both, one is the start of a 4-book series, but like you were saying, they're different characters.
Yeah.
And then the other one's a standalone.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's with romances, it does actually, sometimes actually not to sound like very mercenary and stuff, but, it does make sense to publish romances because it's more likely that you're going to make money from them.
Yep. Romance is the way to go. So, I mean, it's what I read most often, and even my urban fantasy has some kind of romantic plot line. So
Mine as well, but I mean, I'm kind of, it wasn't going to necessarily be that way, but it just ends up that way because
happens.
the thing is, for me, I'm character driven, and although I do believe that girls and guys can be friends, it does, what interests me is relationships, whether it's
Yeah.
friends, whether it's more than friends, or whether it's someone getting really pissed off because he kind of ends up dating the girl that the best friend was actually in love with, kind of, stuff like that,
Yeah,
Stuff.
I'm definitely a character driven. I'm more a character driven story plotline person than plot driven story person.
Yeah.
Give me all of the drama.
I'm also drama.
Give me all of the drama.
Like,
and I say that, and I hate some of the drama tropes. I'm like, if you would just talk to that person, you would see this is not the way it is. Idiot.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
or the other day, I realized because someone hired me to do a critique for them, and then I'm like, you're glossing over the interesting parts, You're telling me they fought. I want to see the fight, I don't want to be told they fought. I want to see it happen, I'm like, oh, come on. But I think so. I think people are always like, because the whole drama thing, that's what makes it interesting. It's just like so, so, but for me, it's a balance as well. You have to balance the plot thing as well, because also just drama and no forward motion towards an end point also doesn't work. But I've had to actually teach myself to prioritize plot a little bit more so that it isn't just about characters clashing and bumping against each other in whatever way and stuff like that. But I'm still, my interest goes into the whole like human interaction kind of thing. So kind of shows.
So writing is fun. Writing is fun. Writing is fun. Publishing sucks. Can I just hand it to someone and say, here, you do it for me?
You can, but you're going to have to give up like probably 60% of your profit minimum.
I don't wanna.
Yeah, I know. Me neither.
Hence the reason I'm not doing that.
Exactly. Yeah, it did come down to that for me in the end. Because, I could have just given up on my series, but other than the fact that I love the series, I just kind of feel it's like, what does a publishing house actually offer me these days? Because they don't really want to edit, they don't really want to market, they don't want to release. So they're basically providing me with a cover, which I can either myself hire someone to do for probably a lot less than the opportunity cost of giving 70% of my profit for like an infinite amount of years.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like even with small publishers, I feel like the publishing companies hire the same cover artists we do. If you're an indie author, the difference is that because you're an indie author and cover artists are like, we know you don't have money, this is how much we're going to charge you. And they look at the publishing company and like, oh, you're a publishing company, we're going to charge you twice that. I feel like that's literally the only difference, is that we get the same kind of cover we would for half the cost.
Yeah. No, because I mean, I know for a fact that the editor that worked with me with the publishing house that I was with was a freelance editor as well at the same time. And she told me herself that she actually also works for like the Big Six company, or that stage it was Big Six, now it's Big Five. And she was working for them as well because they hire freelance editors to edit for their company. So it's like, when she told me that, then I kind of like, whoa, you don't realize, you kind of assume that publishing houses have like these offices with their editors sitting around, doing stuff, nothing better to do, and it's really not that at all. They kind of outsource everything anyway.
I was gonna say some of them do that, or some of them have it like maybe one or two, but as soon as they get swamped, that's when they bring in the freelance editors.
Yeah, but also, I mean, have you noticed really the quality, like the newer? I don't know how much young adult books you read, and I'm not going to name the book that I'm talking about, but like the drop in quality of the editing in the trade published books these days. I'm like, and it's upsetting because like I've been following these books basically for, let's say, from 2014-ish, thereabouts. I'm not exactly sure now, but it's like 3, 4, 5, 6 books that I've read by the same author. And suddenly this new book comes out and I'm like, good grief, did you not have someone just tell you not to show instead of telling, basic writing stuff? How are you not being told this by your editor, And then, it's not, so I'm not talking about like actual, small typos or stuff slipping through, because that always happens, I'm talking about literal writing flaws that they just let go, and that's, and the thing is, and it's not that I can't think that it's just that the author just decided to disregard this person. I think there wasn't a person, because because it literally changes the style so much so that people, like readers, not like the readers, when they did the reviews, like they didn't like it as much as the other books, and they couldn't tell why. And I read it, and the moment I read it, it's like, no, I can actually tell exactly why, and it's because of all these technique stuff that was there in the previous books that suddenly isn't there now. And and that's really, I mean, if a trade publishing house isn't actually there for quality control, then what the hell is it there for?
To make it look better.
Yeah, but other than now apparently the access to the readers, but eventually the readers are going to hopefully come around and just buy self-published authors, because obviously this whole idea of buy trade published books, our quality is better, is not actually legitimate criterion anymore.
I've been reading. I read YA not as often as I used to. I go on different binges. Yeah. When I do hit YA, I'll read a whole bunch. But I'm noticing I don't read as much traditionally published stuff anymore. Period. I mean, even in urban fantasy, which is what I mostly read, urban fantasy and regular fantasy is what I mostly read, and I'm sticking mostly to indie authors these days. And it's not because I don't want to read the trade stuff. It's just that I pick up the indie stuff first.
Yeah. Because, I mean, for me, I tried to do that as well, but I don't know. But I have to also say, like last year, I read a grand sum total of 3 books, because it also doesn't help, because the 4th book that I picked up to read was Les Trois Mousquetaires. Maybe I should just try to say it all in French instead of trying to butcher it by saying it in French and English at the same time. But yeah, so I've been reading the entire unabridged version of The Three Musketeers in French, because I'm trying to refresh my French, and it's taking me a lot longer than I would like to admit. But the thing is about it, so I haven't read as much as I actually want to read, but it's just that and it also doesn't help, like if I'm busy editing, especially if I'm editing for other people as well, then I really struggle to turn off like that little part in my brain that's constantly nitpicking literally everything that I pick up to read. And then I just don't enjoy reading. So I kind of want to wait until I'm exclusively drafting, but that hasn't been happening for various reasons last year. So hopefully this year I'll be reading a bit more. But that one book that was out early last year, just, oh, good grief. I was so upset about it, really, because, they charge so much for ebooks. Like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times as much as an indie publisher. And there's no discernible quality. If anything, a good self-publishing writer will make damn sure that their quality isn't on that level.
Because there's still a stigma. I hear indie authors say all the time that there's not a stigma anymore, but there is. I hear it all the time from people who are not writers, who are nothing but readers. The reason they don't read indie published books is because there is still that stigma that indie authors will write a draft and then publish it without any editing at all. And while no, it's not true, the stigma from people who are not writers is still there, and that is the reason they don't read indie published books.
Yeah.
So, and yet I have indie authors telling me all the time that that's not true. And I was like, yes, it is. Have you actually talked to any readers who are not writers recently? Because it is still very much a stigma.
Yeah.
I have people tell me all the time when I tell them I plan on indie publishing, they're like, well, I'm never going to read your book because that means your quality is shit. I'm like, okay.
Rock on, but to each his own. No, but like it's especially with young adults as well, like the teenagers and things and people who are supposed to want to read young adult, like my genre and things. It is a challenge to get them to take a chance on my book, which is also where Wattpad came in, because they're not going to buy my book if they don't know who I am and they don't know the quality of my writing just out there, because they basically get told. And like if you go on like Tumblr and places like that, where the social network is that a lot of teenagers kind of build around themselves, the trade publishing industry members are actually really they actually do say, no, buy our books because our quality is better, or crap like that. And I'm like, actually it's not, it's really not. And most of us, I think, or not most of us, but the good writers in indie publishing are people who actually decided to just not even try to go for trade publishing anymore, or they are hybrid authors that do have trade published books and just decided to, at least for one or two books, publish themselves. But so for me, I also, when I realized I am going to do the self-publishing thing, I really made a study out of editing, like every single phase of editing, because I just realized that even if I can't hire an editor for every single book, I have to make damn sure that nobody will ever say, oh well, yeah, it's good, but it's just too bad that you didn't get someone.
It's never seen an editor. Yeah,
something like that. But for me, at least at my level of editing is as such that I actually am a freelance editor. So because I just ended up, I spent so much time learning all this stuff that I just realized that if I'm not, well, I needed to make money, but I just realized if I'm going to make money in another way and not use my editing and formatting and stuff that I've been self-teaching in some way to make a living, then I'm actually just going to lose it again, because I can't produce books fast enough for myself to keep those kind of skills sharp. So it just did a dual, it had a dual purpose. But it's, so for me, I realized that I actually have a certain level of quality to my own editing on my own writing. So that's why I'm always so scared of saying, okay, no, I'm dismissing this advice, because I don't want to think that maybe I'm now getting so complacent that I'm just not even considering that maybe I'm not perfect. But it's just that you kind of, I do realize that I do know a lot about what makes stuff work. It would just be nice if I could prove it with sales numbers. That would be lovely, But but it's but like I said, for me, it's a long-term strategy game. I don't want to do the whole let's do this way, publishing by numbers where 20 million people are following one piece of advice and then they flood the market with it and stuff like that. So but so like you say, it's sometimes it's hard. It's difficult to make those choices. Because I had to make a choice. Am I now going to hire an extra editor? But again, with the South African US exchange rate the way it is,
that hurts. That hurts a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we're talking about months of my salary that would go towards paying the editor for a single editing class. And and I'm living comfortably. I mean, not to flex or anything, but I mean, it's not
I was
like,
gonna say that's nice.
yeah, it's not like I'm probably living where I'm living now. I'm living an upper middle income class in lifestyle, but it's just everything is multiplied by a factor of 14 because the value, you know, like there's not the value of the stuff here isn't the same as the value of stuff
In
in
the
the US,
US.
for example.
Yeah.
So for me to
Conversion rates are weird, man.
yeah, it is really economics is weird.
I
So
thought Canada's conversion rate was bad. No.
no, you have no idea, darling. No,
No.
it's very yeah, so for me it's a real consideration. And if you're going to hire an editor, for especially for me, if I'm going to hire an editor, I have to be willing to sink that much cash into something that is probably going to take years for me to make back, if at all. So it's painful, you know. I can't. My wallet squeals every time I reach for my credit card. You know, it's not.
I bet.
Yeah.
Oh God. That just sucks.
Yeah.
Sucks so bad.
But that's why. So when I realized I have to self-publish, I realized, listen, I have to make sure that I can do this by myself to a degree where most other editors wouldn't even be able to go to. So you know, I really put a lot of effort into learning skills and learning how to verbalize like what's wrong with the book, and because if I can explain it to myself, I can fix it. But
Okay.
but then luckily I found a way to monetize it, so it made it worthwhile. But yeah, it's actually it's but at the same time, you know, I freelance as an editor, but I only have like Fiverr and Upwork that I work on, because I don't want to actually start an actual official, like my own editor website and handling the cash side of it myself the whole time. Because what I said was, when I started doing it, I want to make money to be able to sustain myself while I write, but I don't actually want to spend so much time on the admin side of everything that I can't write, because I spend more time chasing down payments and stuff than actually doing what I wanted to do in the first place.
Yeah.
But
And I know Upwork and Fiverr both make it easy so that you can turn down jobs that you don't want because they won't be time efficient for you to allow you to make time for your own writing.
yeah, so and that's nice about it. Fiverr I find is a bit punitive though. Like
Yeah.
they work on a search algorithm, and if you don't deliver something on time, or if you refund someone, or you cancel an order because they sent you crap that you specifically say you do not read, for example, rape fetish erotica, my personal favorite, you know, then you get your statistics take a beating, and then because your statistics are down, you feature less in their search algorithm. So
Yep.
they literally punish you because your clients are assholes. So not all.
So
I
it's
have some
lovely.
awesome clients. So please, if you find me on Google, I have some awesome clients. But like, you know, there are some people who really just. I specifically state I do not read horror, I do not read erotica, and I don't edit fan fiction. So why would you send me one of those three?
Yeah.
And then they would do something like call it something else. But I'm sorry, erotica is still erotica. You can call it a comedy, it's still erotica. It might be a funny erotica, but it's still erotica. You know, some things you can't like obscure by making it like. So, oh yeah, then
I write smut.
yeah, smut can be cool, but you know, I don't know. So the thing is, and it's just like, then I get like that, then I get irritated with that. But now, especially with the new contract stuff that I do for that other company, it's not nearly as relevant. It's actually a very satisfying feeling where I actually have to be in a place where I actually fire clients, because I just say, well, sorry, I don't have time for this. I can't do it, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm still trying to keep my more loyal, my returning clients and things. But I still very carefully consider before I go into new ones. But now I've recently also increased the rates at which I do the content editing, especially, so that the amount that they would have to pay me would then basically be on par with what I get paid to work for this other company. Because it's just, if you get to a point where taking on any new job for me at this stage means that I have to actually give up something else. So I have to I have to get a certain level of income to justify that. And that's so it took me a while to figure out how to do that, but I think I've got the way. I just don't know if people are actually going to be willing to buy it at that price. But for me, it just came to the point where, like, if you charge, because I went under price, because it didn't bother me at the stage where I started, because again, with the exchange rate, I can actually make a lot less money than a lot of other people and still have quite a reasonable income. But the thing is that I find that you get like the really unprofessional people send you stuff to work on. And oh, good grief! Now my electricity wants to go, so now I have to go get a walk. Thanks for listening. So yeah, so the unprofessional people would want to work with you because obviously they're not losing much by hiring, and then the result of that is really frustrating then, because it could take me like 16 hours to do a proper editing job on something that should have taken me 4 hours or whatever. Not, I'm just as an example, it usually takes me a lot longer to edit the book. But, and then they because they send in their rough drafts, like literal rough drafts, they send to me to fix. And you don't do that. Who does that, And then I can understand, though, if someone says, listen, this is a rough draft. I just want to know, is this good? And I want to know, for example, recently a guy did come to me and he said, this is a rough draft, but I want to know, this is my first book that I ever finished. So I want to know exactly where I need to focus in order to make the book a lot better. So then I understand what my purpose is, because then I realize that, yes, I have to read through the rough draft to actually help him, But like, you get other people who's like, no, make this book perfect, and then they send me a rough draft, and then they hire me for something like proofreading, like me exchanging commas is going to actually make their books worth reading, and that's horrifying. So stuff like that. So that's why I started ramping up the prices, because I just realized that at least if I charge them a bit more, then it does get to the point where I hope that people are going to say, well, if I'm going to spend this much money on an editor, I should probably make sure that it's at least for stuff that I'm damn sure that I can't figure out on my own, So that's kind of the theory of it, but I don't know how it's going to work out for me.
Yeah. Publishing is fun. Writing is fun.
It is. But I'm complaining a lot, but actually it's still, I get paid to read, and I get paid to write, and I get paid so I can't really complain. Actually, the better.
And I don't yet.
You will.
I will, but I don't yet. Kind of have to have stuff published before you can get paid for it. And I did do editing for a very short while. But it was like you were talking about, the fact that I never had time for my own stuff because I was always editing other people's stuff. And actually I was getting burnt out on my own stuff trying to fit it in. So I did also not just editing, but ghostwriting as well. Yeah. And I finally just quit doing both for the same reasons, that I didn't have time for my own stuff, and I was getting burnt out of my own stuff, and I was unhappy with I was unhappy working on other people's stuff and never having time for my own.
Yeah. No,
So.
it's very for me, I actually, when I started freelancing, a lot of people, because I don't have like a degree in English or anything like that. I did a commercial degree for business, BCom, and that ended up working out well for me because that's how I landed my job. But so for my what I did was actually for 7 years I went and beta read and critiqued people, and then I just asked them to give me a reference to say, listen, she's really good at what she does. She actually does understand what makes fiction work. So, and that's what I put up in my first stuff. But then I explained that, listen, at that stage, I'd been writing for like 16 years already. So when I did that, then they kind of, a lot of people were like, oh, well, okay, I'm going to invite you to do ghostwriting for me. But I just decided I'm never going to ghostwrite because, again, I've heard that ghostwriting is absolutely soul destroying. And secondly, and I know that there are even people in my network who do it, so I'm not saying anything against them, but I find the act of hiring ghostwriters to be a bit unethical and often morally repugnant because they're using these ghostwriting books to raid like Amazon, the Amazon Prime, or what is it that you subscribe to?
Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah, Kindle Unlimited. So they use writers to they hire, basically, let's say they hire like 100 ghostwriters to write like 100 books, and then they publish those 100 books like really a few days apart so that they can get more visibility, which means that if anyone just buys like 1 or 2 books at a time, and pages 1 or 2 times, then they make money. So and I know that that's why I don't want to get involved with that kind of crap, because I don't want to add to that. And the thing also with, so because I don't blame writers for ghostwriting, because I do understand why they would want to do it, because it's a skill they have and they can make money writing that way. But it's just, what they've been doing with it, what people who hire ghostwriters are doing with it is really, for me, it's a problem. But except for that, my whole thing actually comes down to, if I can write, if he says, listen, I want a Scottish romance, then I'm going to write the best damn Scottish romance that I'm capable of writing. And if I don't write that well, then I would never have given it to him. But if I do write that well, then why the hell am I not publishing it for myself?
See, I was writing erotica, which I have no real interest in writing myself. So I had no problem writing it for someone else who would use it. Yeah. And then I wrote a couple of shorter nonfiction pieces as well. My biggest thing with the nonfiction pieces is that I have no way of knowing for sure that I wasn't writing someone's like college paper. Yeah. And so I did less of those. But because they can tell me that's not what it was for all they want, but they could be lying to my face.
That's true.
So I never will know if that's what they were doing with it or not. And so I did less of those than I did like the erotica pieces. But I was writing erotica shorts that were like subjects that I don't even like reading, much less like I was disgusting myself while I was writing it. And they were like, oh, this is fantastic. This is exactly what I want. And I was like, I am about to get sick.
Yeah.
And I loved writing it because they paid me to do something I would never, ever want written under my own name ever. Yeah. So it was perfect. And I wouldn't mind going back to ghostwriting, to that kind of ghostwriting, because I know I wouldn't sell it myself. It's not something I want attached to my name at all. Yeah. So I have no problem writing it for someone else if they like it. And they can do whatever they want with it. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, for me,
don't even say I wrote it. Don't even say Someone else wrote it. You could say you wrote it all you
all
want.
by yourself. But that's the thing. I also, even for myself, I don't really believe in writing something for profit. So like, how can I say? I really hope I'm profitable. Don't get me wrong. But the whole idea of, ooh, dystopians are selling, let me write a dystopian, that's not how I want to work, because I actually want to be like, I want to be the next first guy, because that's the guy that makes the money. And if I want to do that, I have better odds of actually doing that by actually just writing what I love, and maybe hopefully one day the stars align and whatever I publish that time is actually the thing that happens to be the thing everybody wanted and nobody realized. But so even then, and the thing is for me, I don't know for you about you, but like for me when I'm rough drafting, it's emotionally exhausting, because even when you love your idea and you love your characters and you're passionate about getting this thing done, it's still probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done. Writing a book is one of the hardest things I ever do, and I do it repeatedly. But the point is, that's still a massive challenge, and that's why I actually love what I'm writing. So just the idea of not liking what I'm writing because I want to make money, and I'm terrified that, for me, a worst case scenario is I do that and it ends up being like Agatha Christie with Poirot, and he's like this, everybody loves him and she despises him, and she despises him from the first day she wrote him, and that's basically all they wanted to write, and she ends up, and I'm like, yeah, that's like my nightmare scenario. I don't want that to happen to me, so I'm just not going to risk it. But for that same reason, the idea of, I would, if I did ghostwriting, I would still want to do something where the idea intrigued me or the genre is fun for me to write in. But again, if it intrigues me and I have fun writing it and they think it makes money, then why would I actually give it to them? Why wouldn't I just publish it myself? And that's kind of, it just keeps coming back to that. And I actually, because a lot of times they keep asking me, and the other day I actually kind of lost it, and I said to him, listen, if I wrote something that I considered worthwhile to actually sell at the price that you put up as the budget, I would just publish it on my own. And then it disappeared. But I mean, but it's the same, it's also like an agent. The other day I read a thing about an agent, and they're like, no, they would work with a self-publisher, but they have to make sure, because if you self-publish, you have to give numbers, because they want to be sure that if they take your book on, you are capable of selling like 1 million books. And I'm like, well, fantastic. So what exactly are you offering me? Because why am I going to, if I know for sure that my next book is going to sell 1 million books and I can get 80% of royalties, why would I give any percentage of that to anyone else?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe that's why it was easier for me to ghostwrite the stuff that I would never sell myself, for that exact reason.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Welcome back. There was someone entering my house, and I was like, who's here?
I realized it has to be someone. It's either that or it's a ghost, and I'm like, am I supposed to be freaking out right now? It's like,
so yeah.
But I've kept you busy now for a few hours, so because we've been talking.
We've been on for almost 2 hours now, but most of it's been chatting about various things in the writing publishing world that we either like or don't like. It's been fun.
It is fun. It is actually quite nice. I just think if I'm trying to advertise to people and it's like, no, it's a quick thing. It's like maybe a few minutes of hanging out before, 20 minutes of actual sprinting, maybe a bit of hanging out after. And I'm like, well, this is not the best illustration ever of what I'm intending here.
Oops.
But you know what? We're the only people watching right now, so we are our audience.
If it works, it works.
It works, yeah. But I have to say, I'm really I'm enjoying this daily 20 thing. So I'm glad I decided to stick through with it. Because
Yeah.
it is just nice to not do it alone.
Yeah. It's like me with my live streams on Sundays because I chose Sunday mornings and I live in the Bible Belt. Everyone's at church on Sunday mornings, and that's 90% of the time they're like, I would join you for your live stream, but it's in the morning on Sunday, church day. And I'm just like, at the time, everyone else was doing their live streams on days I couldn't make it to. I had the weekends off, but this is the only time that was available for me to do mine. Sorry.
Nope. That
it works.
So I want to check with you. Are we doing this tomorrow again?
I will not be here tomorrow because I will be out of town.
Yeah. Cool. All right. And then Sunday as well. So are we just doing this again on Monday?
Sure.
And
if you want to, you're welcome to join me for my Sunday live stream. But like I said, we're not doing a writing this time. We're doing planning journal, bullet journal stuff.
Okay.
We're doing a chat about that kind of stuff. But you're welcome to join if you want to.
Cool. I'll just maybe send me a link when you're ready to go live, and then if I'm there, because it also sometimes depends a bit, but if I'm there, I'll do it. So.
Alrighty.
Cool.
I'm excited. But I guess until next time.
Yeah. Let me not do a full 2-hour thing now to you. So.
Mine are always 2 hours, so that doesn't bother me.
Oh, that's cool. But the thing is, we can't do it at 2 hours every night, you know? If we're going to do it like regularly, we need to try and not do it 2 hours every night because people are going to get tired. They don't shut up.
Dang.
Dang.
All right. Well,
have a lovely evening or lovely day. I'm having a lovely evening.
You're gonna have a lovely evening.
Yeah.
I will have a lovely day. Bye.
Bye-bye.